It doesn't seem like people have been talking about Marquise Brown for fantasy football this year, and I understand why. He's coming off a year where he finished as the wide receiver 44 in PPR leagues, and he had a foot injury that left him sidelined for a lot of the season. Still, I think that he's one of the best picks for fantasy football drafts this year, and today, I'll explain why he should be viewed as possibly the best value pick that you can make at his ADP. People were in on Hollywood last year for one reason: volume. Now we're on to a new season, but that point in his favor still hasn't changed. He's the clear-cut wide receiver 1 for the Cardinals right now, and the only competition for targets he has is rookie Michael Wilson, slot receiver Rondale Moore, and a 32-year-old Zach Ertz who's coming off a torn ACL and MCL. He blows all these players out of the water from a talent perspective, and clearly nobody on this team is good enough to threaten his status as the top pass catcher. DeAndre Hopkins has been a bit of a pest for Marquise Brown in his time with the Cardinals, but now D-Hop has moved on and accepted a contract with the Tennessee Titans. When Hopkins was off the field and serving his suspension for the first 6 weeks of the season last year, Marquise Brown was the wide receiver 6 overall in that time and was averaging over 10 targets per game. D-Hop is gone for good now, and we saw what Brown did in his limited time without him. Now imagine if he can continue at that trajectory we saw for an entire season. Now, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows for Marquise Brown. There are two main concerns with his outlook this year, which are injuries and quarterback play. It's no secret that Brown has had his fair share of injuries throughout the course of his career, including a broken foot last year that forced him to miss 5 games. Obviously, that's less than ideal, but he seems to be good to go for training camp, and he's presumably just as healthy as any other receiver they have on the roster. So I'm not overly concerned about the health, but the quarterback play will be an issue at the start of the season. Kyler Murray is still working his way back from an ACL tear that he suffered late in the year, and there's a good chance that he won't be ready for week 1, despite him making it his goal to be back in time. That might make it a bumpy ride for Brown in the first few weeks of the season, but when Murray is back, Hollywood will be ready to light it up with him. Right now, Brown is going as the wide receiver 34 in half PPR drafts. This just doesn't make much sense to me, given that he finished higher than that last year in points per game, despite the injury and competing for targets with DeAndre Hopkins. He's going behind players like Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, and Brandon Ayuk right now, and I think that he will purely just volume his way past those guys. Another thing to remember is how much Arizona gave up to trade for Hollywood. They traded their first round pick just 2 off seasons ago for Brown and a 3rd rounder, so clearly the team believes in him as a talent. He's likely going to average 10 or more targets per week on this thin depth chart, and when Kyler Murray comes back, he could easily take the jump into becoming a very solid wide receiver 2. It's tough to find players this late in fantasy drafts that are going to get as much work as Hollywood will. So if you find yourself in the 7th or 8th round really needing to beef up your wide receiver group, you should be chomping at the bit to grab Brown at a value. People say you should chase volume in fantasy football, and he's primed to get just as much work, if not more, as some of the best in the game, which makes him nothing short of a great value this year. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe down below and hit the bell so you don't miss a beat. If you want to hear more from Fall Ball Sports, go follow the podcast wherever you listen and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.